ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to the Preferred Equity Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Law, joined by esteemed co-host, Joseph Archbold. And despite our name, we are not here to tell you how to manage your financial portfolio, and instead are going to be talking about virtual reality, the pros, the cons, unintended implications, how it will affect the penises of the future, all of the things. Joseph, how about you kick us off here?
Absolutely. Now, if you don't know too much about virtual reality, what we're talking about here is basically putting that headset on your head and basically being immersed into this world, this 3D graphical world that has never been seen before. We're so used to playing video games and seeing a screen before us, but what happens when we really believe that we're in this kind of world? And I kind of, thought back to a situation that I had one time where I had went to a bar and experienced virtual reality for the first time. And I have no idea why this man brought a whole virtual reality set to a random bar. But long story short,
that sounds pretty weird.
Isn't that weird? Like he set up the whole thing in a bar.
Was he selling anything? Or was it just for shits and gigs? Like, hey, I just got this today. Who wants to play with it?
Maybe that's how he picked up chicks.
Holy shit, dude! That's the play right there. That's how it affects the penises of the future.
Maybe. Wait, were you really saying that? I thought I was misunderstanding what you were saying.
No, bro. I mean, because we're sitting here, and eventually, we're gonna get to talking about how it's gonna affect future relationships. I mean, that's what we were talking about, right?
Affect the penises of the future.
Yeah, bro.
I was like, why do I keep hearing him say that? Oh my god!
Look how crazy it is. It's already affecting the penises of today with this absolute Chad legendary man, this man of myth, coming into the bar with a virtual reality. Bro, he's probably got a whole program on there that subconsciously gets the girls to want him. It's just his face everywhere on super muscular body. Bro, this guy's fucking genius. I'm telling you, that's probably what it was. Anyway, sorry, keep on going.
No, yeah, I will, but I really do not whatever. So he brings it there. Maybe he sets it up, and he's like, hey, you want to try this out? And then they try it out, and then he's got some kind of conversation to start off from there. So maybe that's what he's doing. But long story short, I happened to come by. I wasn't a pretty girl or anything. But I was like, yo, what's up with this? He's like, hey, it's virtual reality. Go ahead and try it. So he gave it to me. I put the headset on, and, the game started. And the first thing I was thinking to myself is, yo, this is so gimmicky. This is so, whack. And the graphics weren't that good. And, I think the game was about shooting, spaceships or something like that, shooting spaceships down. And I'm playing it. I'm trying to get into the groove. And at first, I'm not taking it seriously. But it starts to get harder and harder and harder. And I start to, get super immersed in it. And after a little bit, an hour and 30 minutes pass, and all of a sudden, somebody grabs me from behind, and I'm like, what the heck? And he takes off the headset, and he's like, dude, you've been playing for nearly 2 hours. You've been going kind of crazy. I need you to just sit down for a second and just...
Dude, I need to give this to some pretty girls over here, bro. Come on, Joseph.
He said, sit down, calm down, and let me give it to this girl who's coming up right now. But, when I sat down, I kind of was just looking around. I'm like, wow. I was in a bar the whole time. I thought I was on planet Zeron or something, some made up planet. But, that was pretty interesting to me how you can get so lost in it. So that's why I was wondering, how could this affect the future? I mean, what do you think about that sense of immersion?
Dude, we're kind of at a point where video games are extremely immersive even without the whole virtual reality gimmick of them. I mean, we talk about me, for instance, right? I've had my fair share of getting lost in video games for quite a long amount of time, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
I mean, with the graphics and gameplay that we have today, it's extremely easy to get lost in a world, and honestly, that's, I think, a large part into the game developers themselves, the technology that we have, and I think that there's a respectable element to that, of course, but there's also a little bit of a danger to that, because take me for example. A few years back, I ended up getting really I don't want to say addicted because that has some really inherent negative connotations, and I'm not trying to paint the game in like a negative light. But I would say that I played a lot more than I should have of this game called Warframe, for a decent 3 or 4 months, to the point where it kind of consumed my life in like a less than positive way. And I gotta say that to think that that's happening already with the technology that we have, that's not even virtual reality, not really trying to take you yourself to another world. I mean, I definitely say that it's got some troubling implications for the future. There is something that I did want to bring up, though, that when you first started talking about it a few minutes ago, you said you put on a headset, right? You put on a headset, and I'm imagining you also probably put on a little face mask kind of deal that you ended up like some lenses, right?
I think it's just it's like a heads. Did I say headset? It's lenses. Like you put it in front of your eyes. Maybe I'm calling
Yeah,
it the wrong thing.
you got a headset with lenses and
Yeah.
yeah, and obviously the audio part of it too, so you can hear and be immersed with both your eyes and your ears. One thing that is a criticism of modern day virtual reality is that it's just not good enough. Not necessarily that the games themselves aren't good enough, but the technology that we have isn't really immersive enough. Because no matter how good the software is, right? No matter how good the graphics are that you're looking at, you still are sitting here, like you said, with a headset on your head. You have that physical touch that's a subconscious separation from the actual world that you're immersed in. And to think right now that's what we have. In the future, to get full immersion, it's possible that we won't even need a headset or a lens or anything like that. I mean, to think of the possibilities, you could have some really, really I was thinking about this the other day, right? Imagine you got contact lenses instead of a big old thing on your face, right? Put some contact lenses that can display images in front of your eyes, and some microscopic ear implants, or even more crazy a brain jack. You know what I'm saying? That's the direction that we're headed in if we can really optimize the technology.
Oh yeah, Neo from the Matrix. Go ahead and jackal and then just put that long needle in the back of your head and you can feel everything. I know kung fu, man.
I know kung fu, exactly. But no, I think that that's a big thing that's keeping us from that future right now. It's just the fact that I mean, if you look at game development, VR came out what was it? Probably around 2012, 2013,
Yeah.
and it really hasn't taken off in a big way. It's making small steps, not giant leaps, like we've seen in other parts of the gaming industry. And a lot of that is like I said, the lack of true immersion. And I wonder whether or not we're gonna look back 20 years from now and be like, damn, that stuff really sucked, and now we have way better VR, or we're gonna look back at it and be like, damn, that was a phase and a trend. I'm glad we dropped that. You know what I'm saying? If it's really gonna take off the way that we're thinking.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, VR right now is in its infancy, and so a lot of the games they're just coming out right now, and so one of the things that you'll notice is the limitation with the video games involve the fact that you have to have those controllers. You have two controllers in your hand, and they're basically like shooting buttons on the back of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that already limits the kind of games you can play. I mean, uh, thinking back, that other guy, the guy at the bar, did have other games, and they were all some form of a shooter, or some form of holding something in your hand, and maybe one day they might have some type of hack and slash type of thing, but you've got to hold something in your hand. So it doesn't seem like a complete replacement for video games because there's a lot of other there's more nuance to video games. A lot of other types of video games that wouldn't require a virtual reality headset or whatever, right?
Yes, of course. And I mean, sorry to interject here, but something you just said, like a hack and slash, right? Think about how difficult that would actually be to implement. I mean, I know me and you aren't the leaders of technology here. We're just two guys on the internet talking about stuff. But I say hack and slash, right? I've got this thing on my head, these headphones on my ears, and I'm seeing a knife in my hand or a big old sword.
Right.
But
And let me mention, you will really look down at your hand and see that sword, and
but you won't feel the sword.
you'll just feel the controller, so you'll feel the hilt.
No, but what I'm saying is part of the virtual reality experience, as I imagine it, as like the final, the pinnacle of it would be to really get an immersion, right? And to get that immersion, you'd need a sense of weight to the thing you're swinging in the world, right?
Right. Sounds like, are you going for like a Star Trek holodeck kind of thing, or are you just talking about holding like a sword controller in your hand instead of a joystick? What are you
No,
going for?
I'm thinking more holodeck because if you think about it, like this, let's say you got the sword controller, right?
Yeah.
That would be limiting. You would only it'd be like back in the day when you got the Guitar Hero controllers,
Yeah. That's
and you
true.
could literally only play Guitar Hero with those controllers. Well,
Yeah.
not literally. People have hacked them to do crazy stuff like Dark Souls challenges. Not the point. The point is, it's kind of like an obsolete thing that's like not cost effective to really make happen. You got one controller in your hand that can do all these different games, but you're going to manufacture a giant sword controller for this one thing. So I don't think that it would be a controller based thing. I think it'd be more of a holodeck Star Trek kind of thing.
And let me ask you a question. What do you think of the holodeck ever existing? I mean, if I remember, the technology was based off. I did see some technology where you sound manipulated sand or manipulated some type of physical, molecules that it can arrange into a physical form. Or I'm not. I haven't done so much research on that. But what do you think about that really happening? What do you think that might look like?
Are you talking about like what a holodeck itself might look like?
Yeah, I mean, the holodeck. Well, it depends because I remember from Star Trek, the holodeck had a huge physical component to it, but maybe a holodeck might just be visual. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that a holodeck would ever work if it was just visual. And as a matter of fact, I don't think virtual reality can work if it's just visual because part of reality is, I mean, the whole thing of reality is really just interacting with the mind's five senses. You've got your sight, your smell, your touch, your hearing, taste. So if you stepped into a hologram and literally just had some visual elements, you would be pretty underwhelmed and you just feel like you were standing in a giant TV box, to be honest. I think in order for that to actually happen, we would have to make some vast, like, advances in science, kind of like what you were talking about with the sound waves or some type of forces manipulating the molecules and being able to change the forms of things that were actually inside the hologram or the holodeck, excuse me. And also, I mean, like, you got to think of movement, right? The holodeck's only so big. So would the whole ground be a treadmill? How would you have a treadmill that could move in all different directions? Would it be a gyroscopic treadmill? I think that actually could work, but then you're talking about a huge structure that is not cost effective at all. So when you think about a holodeck, I think a holodeck will be a step in the right direction over a controller setup. However, I do think that the true steps towards virtual reality would be more of like a mind-computer interface.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Now you have to explain that. What? what? What are you talking about? I'm
So
getting.
there's two types of computer interfaces when talking about. I might be butchering this if it's whether it's the brain computer interface or the mind computer interface. Point is, it's either the BCI or the MCI. So there's two types. Let's just go ahead and say the MCI for now, in case I'm wrong. Whatever. Google it. So there's the mind computer interface, and then there's the computer mind interface, right? The first two are swapped. And I know it sounds like I'm rambling here, but I'm gonna get somewhere with this. So sorry that I can't exactly say which one is which, but one of them pertains to the brain acting on the computers. Okay, acting on the apparatus. So think of that as, right now we're trying to advance. What's the things that amputees use? What's the word for that? Prosthetics. So right now we're trying to advance prosthetics, and so the mind computer interface is the mind acting on the computer to make the prosthetics. It's your brain telling the computer to move this arm for you, right? That we're making pretty great strides in, and we're not, I wouldn't say close, but we're on our way to perfecting that technology.
So that's
the other one.
That sounds like you want like a full headset that actually can interpret your brainwaves, right?
Exactly. Except it's not the computer interpreting the brain waves. It would be the other way around. It would be the brain interpreting the computer signals. So instead of our brains working on the prosthetics, it would be the computer working on our brains. That has a much different implication for a lot of things. I mean, just trying to make that happen. I mean, obviously, it's not something I'm just thinking of off the bat. This is something that very smart people are working on right now as we speak. But it's a lot further off in the future for us to really have the brain be acted upon and sent information by a computer, just due to the fact that there's a lot of things that could go wrong with that.
I mean, man, I'm trying to go to the year 2300. You're in the year 2500. That's freaking awesome. Talking about MCIs and whatnot. But 2300, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have like virtual reality goggles and stuff like that being super mainstream. And one thing that I think we wanted to think about is the possibility of a virtual reality becoming so immersive that it changes the way that we even work and the way that we build relationships with people, right? So one thing that I could think of is imagine having a job that is completely in virtual reality, right? Wouldn't that be interesting?
Well, the job itself being in virtual reality, I'm trying to wrap my mind around how that would actually work. Elaborate a little bit, if you could. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's kind of funny because they have games. I think one time we were speaking about a game called Grand Theft Auto 5, and I think you told me that it was ridiculously hard to even make money in that game. And when you said that, that really struck me as interesting because, what if there's a possibility in the future that they put up a job on Indeed that literally says virtual so and so, and what you do is we pay you $15. I know it'll be more money. We pay you $20 an hour in the future to collect cyber coins at this location, and that's because in the future maybe esports is such a big thing that there's an economy that comes out of the video game into the real world. And when you clock in, you clock in, you put on your goggles, and you do your 8 hours inside the video game world, and then you clock out, you take off your goggles, and you live in the real world. Like, you think that's kind of far fetched?
I think you're not far off. I wouldn't call it far fetched, but there's a lot of things that would have to happen in order to make that reality. Let me go ahead and kind of lay out what I'm thinking here. So you're basically saying that in the future, if we're, let's say you said esports, right? I don't really think it would be necessarily an esport thing because esports are esports due to the fact that it's like a game that's not very, I would say it's a game that's not super accessible, and it's more based on performance than an actual mechanic of the game. Basically what I'm trying to say there is I wouldn't really think that it'd be like an esports thing. In this reality that you're trying to imagine, we'd be talking about a game that became so ingrained to, it would have to be like so widely played. Basically, everyone on the planet played it, like every single person, and it would have to be so widely spread that the in-game economy would be linked. I mean, at that point, it would be linked to our economy. So you know how in today's world we have microtransactions,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So you got microtransactions, and it would literally be like the microtransactions work one way right now, right?
Right.
You put money in, you get the game currency, and then the game currency stays within the game. You're talking about a world where this in-game currency is not only so difficult to get, but so widely used, and people have put so much importance that there would actually be a legitimate trade between US dollars and game currency X. And that's a world where I don't think we'd ever actually get to that. That would be a world where, in my mind, the game has taken over all of society, which is extremely far fetched. But if we did do that, then why would the need for a US dollar even be there? It would really just be the in-game currency.
I'm going to come clean with you, Justin. I stole that whole idea from a movie, and I'm going to make you guess which one it is.
A movie, not a TV show?
A movie, not a TV show.
Ready Player One.
Bang! You watched it, didn't you?
No, I've never seen it in my entire life.
You know what the story is basically about. I'm basically going to ruin it for everybody if you haven't seen it. It's been out forever. Basically, well, sorry.
Hold up. Spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. Continue, Joseph.
Yeah, it's been out for 2 years, but basically, the real world and the video game world gets so intertwined that the creator of this video game world actually attaches a ridiculous amount of money to beating the video game. And I think it's actually, I don't know the exact amount, but it's something like $1 trillion. It was huge. It was like, if you win this money, you could start like telling the government what to do. In a way, it was a huge amount of money. And so everybody was working to attain, so that because the possibility of getting that money, the fact that it could change so much if you got it, they literally built a corporation to attempt to actually get that money. And so that's kind of a good example, in a movie's kind of sense, where the real world inadvertently connected to a video game world, and a whole corporation got created out of that. Like, so what do you think about that?
Well, I think that only happened in that movie, and you know what? No, I'm not gonna lie. I lied when I said I'd never seen it in my life. I saw the first 15 minutes of it like 4 years ago. Okay,
Did you hate
3 years ago. No, I didn't hate it. I just I don't remember what happened. I just ended up like I saw it at a friend's house. I ended up having to like take off, and like we didn't really get that much into it. But I would go back and watch it. No, I didn't. I think it was a pretty cool premise. But in order for that to happen, what I'd imagine is that, and like that's kind of how it is in the movie, that it's kind of like a brain-computer interface where these people basically jack into the game, right?
Well, they put on their VR goggles.
Okay, so they put on are they running on like a little treadmill thing? Like how does that work?
It's kind of weird because I don't think they. I think they just put it on and then like whatever space is around them. Like there's no treadmill, I don't believe.
Huh. Well, then that movie's bullshit and far-fetched.
I'm gonna be honest. A lot of people kind of not panned the movie, but it was lukewarm. It was kind of like, okay.
You had a cool thought, but you executed it poorly, right?
Yeah. And you know what? I take that back. Thank God. Well, you know what? There is a treadmill involved. I'm sorry. There's some type of treadmill, and you're actually secured into something where you wouldn't end up like just walking off a cliff or something. So okay.
Okay.
You had the right idea.
I take it back, Ready Player One. You're grounded in reality and get my stamp of approval. I mean, at least until I watch you and tear you apart. But not the point. Okay, so one thing that you're talking about here, though, fucking world governments like linked to game currency, that's crazy, right? But that's crazy to us right now because we're in the year 2020, and that's not something that we can ever imagine. I'm sure people of the 1920s had no idea the or we'd be in 100 years, you know? But I do want to kind of take this back to a more grounded idea, right? You talked about, it being linked to work. I do think that for as many points that people have about the negative aspects of, virtual reality, like freaking you're sitting here just wasting your life away and like ignoring people, this and that, what have you. We're going to touch on that a little later. But the thing that I think is that it can have a lot of positive implications on society. As far as work goes, I think virtual reality training could be a really powerful tool for, any type of job market out there, to be honest.
So are you like imagining that instead of like on the job training, you just put on your headset and just kind of go through something like that, or what are you imagining?
Yeah. So let me put it like this, okay? I recently got a job as a chef, or not a chef. That's a little hyperbolic. I got a job as a cook,
Yeah.
and on my on the job training, I obviously screwed up a few times and ended up wasting some food. Right? I mean, it happens. It's not a big deal at all. But let's say across an entire corporation, you got a bunch of people that you're training. Probably got a buttload of new hires, weekly. And now all these people are coming in. They don't have the experience. They're fucking up, and they're wasting food. That's a good amount when you add up all those pennies, they equal a pound. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you're wasting the food costs there. Imagine a world where these virtual reality machines or what have you could get you the training that you need without the expenditure of the costs to your business, whether that be in my like the case that I was talking about, the food costs, or automotive. If you think about people getting trained on engines and whatnot, I'm sure there's been plenty of people who have screwed up and like messed up a transmission or a cylinder here or there, and they that's money that needs to be spent on a new apparatus of training. And I think that depending on how advanced this technology is, it could be a pretty penny upfront, a decent upfront cost, but if you extrapolate it over time, you might end up saving money off of this, and people would get a good in-depth training program without costing your business anything.
I think you're really onto something here. I've really never thought about this, but I've had a flashback to me being a cashier trying to learn the codes for the fruits and vegetables. Like, I think that'd be a pretty interesting program to get started on something like that. But could you imagine if they made a program where you had to sell cars in virtual reality first? Be a car salesman.
You would literally, you wouldn't blow a sale. You would never blow a sale after that.
You could practice, saying, explaining people what the preferred equity plan is. But anyways.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, I don't think there's a future that's possible in all of human future history. I don't think it's gonna be possible to code in the unbelievable amount of stupidity of the car sales customers. Like, there's so much can go wrong. There's so many ridiculous things people will say that no man's smart enough to really predict any of that. Like let's be honest. No machine, Skynet itself could not predict that. It's not possible. I'm sorry.
You'd need like the biggest IBM Watson, type of supercomputer to figure out the stupidest things you could actually say to a car salesman. It'd be pretty crazy.
Fucking computer's like, I'm sorry, I can't allow you to do that. Like, I just want to see your trade-in vehicle. Like, what?
It's at home. It's at home.
The wife said I couldn't bring it.
But listen, I've got a picture on my phone. Don't worry. Like, just give me a price for it. I'll bring it in tomorrow.
Oh my god,
dude, that was absurd.
Dude, I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna get fucking PTSD over here. Like, no. For those of you listening at home, me and Joseph have both worked in the car sales industry, and it destroyed our souls.
Soul crushing. Just the worst.
Literally, just the absolute worst experience.
I
Anyways,
cry every night.
let's go ahead and just extremely awkwardly segue into another topic that I ended up thinking about here, and that's the unforeseen neurological effects of virtual reality.
Now, the unforeseen neurological effects, you're talking about, how it would actually change your brain, right?
Yes. How it would rewire the dopamine systems, the reward systems in your brain. I mean, would people just start fucking it? Like, let's say, obviously not now with what we have. I mean, I could understand it making a tiny impact, but I'm talking about like, like let's say we perfected the brain computer interface and we were able to like jack into like a virtual reality world, and like let's say you got out of that, would you be able to tell reality from fiction? And like even beyond that, like would your brain be able to handle that? You know what I'm saying? Like even if you had a perfectly functioning working brain, like devoid of any type of like psychological issues whatsoever, I wonder how the human mind would like cope with the idea that reality is basically indescribable from non-reality.
That's a really, really important point. And I think it really ties in to how realistic virtual reality can get, that it really can cause you to almost confuse and mix up regular reality with virtual reality, and what kind of problems that could cause. I mean, it kind of reminds me of a disease called schizophrenia, where in your real reality, your brain produces hallucinations of things and projects it into your real reality, and that can disturb you in a way and cause you to do dangerous things. Uh,
That's a little bit incorrect. Not completely, just a little bit incorrect. Most people diagnosed with schizophrenia actually are not dangerous and don't pose a threat to themselves or others for the most part.
no,
Maybe
not,
themselves, maybe themselves, but they're not out here fucking you know blowing up cars and shit.
no, maybe I misspoke. Not necessarily dangerous, but I remember watching this YouTube video that kind of attempted to give me an idea of what it would be like, and it really freaked me out to see that the brain could produce a full hallucination of something visually and audibly. And maybe that could be something that could happen with virtual reality. I'm not sure if virtual reality would exacerbate those kinds of tendencies. And maybe there has to be like a Surgeon General warning for people who have schizophrenia not to use it.
Actually, I think it could be the opposite. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've taken a few psychology classes in my day and done some pretty decent amount of research on the topic, but I don't claim to be anywhere near a doctor or even like a first year med school type person. But I could actually see virtual reality being used as a coping mechanism for these people. You know. Um, you got people who are locked up in psychiatric wards, and they're seeking, they're being treated with with medicine, right? Drugs, chemicals that, to be honest, we don't understand that much more than we understand virtual reality. I mean, big pharma has only really been around for 100 or so years, and the testing and the understanding that we have of the mind isn't really complete, true, unchanging science. We're still learning a lot about the way the brain works. And so I could totally see a future where, if let's say we were to be able to make the brain computer interface or computer brain interface, whatever. I've given up on trying to make it correct. The point I'm trying to get
Whatever
is, yeah, let's say we because at that point, if we have perfected the virtual reality signals to work on the brain and fully immerse us into this reality, then I'd understand at that point we'd be able to understand the brain extremely well. And then at that point, we might be able to outright cure schizophrenia. And if not cure it outright, then be able to have really, really effective treatments, whether that be, better drugs or, as where I'm going with this, maybe treatment via virtual reality, whether or not it's to help make the person better through electrical signals sent by a computer to the brain, or at the very absolute worst case scenario, maybe it's just a coping mechanism so these people can at least enjoy themselves while they, you know, hallucinate and get to experience a version of the reality that is good for them.
And I really think you're onto something. And I wanted to ask you if you knew this Netflix TV show called Altered Carbon by any chance?
I've heard of it. I have been told to watch it by many people.
You gotta watch it, dude. It's freaking awesome.
We are not sponsored by Altered Carbon in any way or any of its affiliates.
But I'm in love with that show, and what you were saying just reminded me of one particular episode. Long story short, without getting into the whole series, where there's a girl, her brain is trapped into virtual reality, and the only way she could cure herself is through therapy within the virtual reality. They didn't explain exactly how it went. But long story short, she was trapped in it, and you couldn't just bring her back. You had to let her work through something within that virtual reality. So I really think you're onto something when you said that VR goggles or whatever might actually help people with schizophrenia or any other neurological diseases to get better. That's definitely a real possibility. And
okay, two things. I'm mad that you just bursted my whole self-importance bubble right now, because I really thought, as I was sitting here speaking, that I was the first person on this entire planet who had thought about that. And now you're telling me that there's a whole ass TV show about it. I'm upset. I am big mad right now. I feel like a fraud.
I didn't think of it. That was them though. Like they made that whole episode. Yeah, they did it basically.
I promise I've never seen it. I promise I've never seen it. Like I'm not sitting here like plagiarizing Altered Carbon to make me look like a hoity-toity smart guy. I promise.
Oh
my God, they're calling for me, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Oh God, no! This is our final episode of the Preferred Equity Podcast.
We only needed one, but what's a really crazy implication though? I was thinking about how people might get so invested into virtual reality to the point that they really only meet people in virtual reality. I mean, do you think people will, only interact inside like a virtual world, or what do you think?
My dude, I don't even think people are going to be meeting people through virtual reality. If we get to that point, you don't even need to meet someone. Like, okay, I'm not saying that I'm one of these people, right? Because I have too much self pride, which is I'm not gonna say it's smart. It's definitely a stupid, bad quality of mine. But I would be mad dating some type of virtual reality person. But I think there'd be so many people who were just like, you know what, screw it. I can design the perfect woman and perfect in every way, shape, or form that I to meet my needs. Then why would I waste the time trying to find someone going through all that heart crushing rejection? It would be a world where you didn't need to meet anyone. I don't even think that you meet people through virtual reality.
Well, I really wouldn't put it past people to attach themselves to an avatar, because I remember I used to play this game called Ragnarok online. I don't know if you heard it before. And basically, have you heard it?
Story? No. If this is a story about you being in love with a waifu, I suggest you don't tell it.
I wasn't in love with a waifu. I basically, long story short, I got married in the game with some girl who I've never have met, who probably lived in India or something. I don't know. I don't even know anything much about her. But
your game avatar married her game avatar.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Now, I was young. I was 13, 14, 15, but that really did mean something to me at that time.
In India, that might be legally binding, my dude. You might be legally married to this woman in India.
I might have a couple of virtual kids as well. I mean, it's all possible, So I really wouldn't put it past people, but what you said is also true as well. I mean, come on, anime girls in a freaking virtual reality. You know, they have the
Game over.
they have the equipment that you can probably connect by Bluetooth, attach it down there, right?
Bro, no, see, you're thinking like 2020, bro. Like you need to think further, like to the extremes here, bro. You keep talking about like the physical equipment, bro. I'm talking about virtual reality where you don't need a headset, you don't need equipment. They fucking jack you in.
Whoa,
No pun intended. But
jack you in,
I'm
jack you
talking
off.
like they they fucking upload your brain here momentarily, and you can live in this world. And like, because that's what I was talking about with the brain computer indexes, bro. That they're working on technology where the computer can just send signals to your brain and activate the parts of your brain that perceive things, perceive touch, sight, hearing. And if you could send those signals to the brain in a certain pattern to really just like hit the right parts of the brain and touch the right buttons, you could make people see literally anything and feel anything just by signaling the brain, because all of our reality is electrical stimulus on the brain. So you're sitting here thinking about like a Bluetooth little pussy box. I'm sitting here saying they're gonna like micro electrocute my brain and make me have an orgasm like out of nowhere.
I mean, and you're actually right. This technology already exists in Japan, of course. Great place to go.
Wait, the Bluetooth pussy box that exists in Japan?
Absolutely real, already exists, and they debuted it in public for some reason. They were like, they got a guy, they attached it up to him. He was really attached to this thing with some lube and everything. People are around him like, all right, so what's this about? And he's literally fake, fake doing this anime girl, and people are just watching like, oh, is it that good, man? You know, tell us how it's going. Like,
here, three Patreon supporters. We will send you a Japanese pussy box.
yeah, please support us. Please support us, definitely, man. But
I mean, you know, if you want to, and if you want to get a Bluetooth Japanese pussy box, absolutely.
I mean, come on, in the future. That's probably not even in the future, bro. That's right now where you can get a girl,
Well,
Japanese girl, anime girl with double Z chesticle, chest, double Z in negative waist. Her waist is so negative that it warps reality. Like it's that skinny.
well, okay. So here's the thing, right? When like you're saying it's happening right now, and I'm inclined to agree with you, okay? And like, let's just take things from one end of the spectrum to the other, okay? So we've already touched on extreme, complete virtual reality, where you don't even need to like go out and talk to people. Personally, I would still try and go out and talk to people because I have this like false sense of ego and like, oh yeah, like reality means something. But I'm sure people in the future, if technology has been ingrained so much in our society, might not see things that way. But I kind of really want to like look at the trends here, right? So you got like online dating and Tinder, right? So I mean, like it's completely different. Like it's nowhere near where we're talking about yet. But like really, when you think about it, you're looking at a screen and a collection of pixels, and you're like saying, "I like swiping right on that collection of pixels." You know, you're not really meeting this person organically. You're doing it through like just this artificial means. Now that person on the other end, if you know you end up talking to them, is for the most part or hopefully still real, right? And so that's one thing. But right now, there's a growing trend all over the world: sex doll brothels. Have you heard of this, Joseph?
Yes, I have heard about it.
Okay, the way you said yes there was very disconcerting. Please,
Well, we're in Houston, and they actually tried to open up a sex doll brothel in Houston. And
did you hear about that?
The mayor shut it down because he was like, yo, you're just going to open up a sex doll brothel? And they're like, yeah, we're just going to do it. We're just going to have a bunch of sex dolls. We're going to bend them over, and you come in, you pay I don't know how much you'd pay for that, but you come in, you pay, and do your thing.
Good cover up there, Joseph.
We'll clean it up for the next guy. I mean, what else can we do? I mean, would you go, Justin?
Um, you know, I think there would. I would be lying if I said there's a part of me that wouldn't go if I was extremely. No. No. Let me rephrase that. I wouldn't go. Now, the idea of having sex with a sex doll, if I was like super, super drunk and like one time to try it, like maybe, right? Like maybe I'd give it a shot. But, but, it would have to be like my own personal sex doll. The idea of going into like a sex doll brothel, absolutely not. No fucking way. Because that's disgusting. You're literally basically sharing fleshlights with legs with a bunch of other dirty ass people.
I think the way they're designing that model is they get like premium sex dolls, like the bee's knees in amazing sex dolls. I can't say amazing looking because they're all going to look like plastic, whatever's, but they will be quote unquote high quality, the best that you can get, and you're not going to be having to keep a lady in your attic. You just have to go to the robot sex doll. I'm sorry, the sex doll.
Like it's just too weird. Like, see, and that's where my pride comes in, right? Where like if I'm sitting here fucking this, where did things go wrong for me? Like, have I really fallen this low to like do this? Like, the only way that I would like think about doing that would be like just more so out of the curiosity of like the experience, of, like what that's kind of like. But to sit there and have it be a regular thing, like, no, Justin Law doesn't need to fuck some plastic. Like, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's that part of me that feels that way. I mean, to be honest, I know I'm extremely contrarian here, and I'll accept that I'm stupid in this regard. But I don't even get on online dating because it's important to me to think or to know, or I want to meet a girl organically. You know what I'm saying? I don't want the internet to have to help me. And that's just, I'm an old fashioned old man in a 23-year-old's body. But
that's true.
Regardless, I mean, like my pride is even stopping me from that. So to think that I'd be a regular at a friggin' sex doll brothel, absolutely not. But there's plenty of people who are, and I think that I might be in the minority here, and that as it progresses, I mean, like, let's say this, right? Let's take it to extreme, and this probably is not really going to be like a virtual reality thing, but like kind of along the same vein of, human interaction and relationships. I mean, let's say we got to a place where whether or not it's organic or if it's AI, dating a clone of someone or like a completely created like new rendition of a female that's made perfect in every way based on like what you perceive. So would you do that, Joseph?
I'm going to be honest with you. I got to try it at least once. I got to get it out of my system. I mean, they open that thing up in Houston, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty.
Oh, you're still talking about the fucking brothel, aren't you?
Oh, did we move? Oh my God!
I was talking about like a perfect clone.
My mind
like
is
AI.
Are they gonna open it? Can I go?
We're moving on, Joseph. We're moving past the sex doll brothel thing in Houston because it's kind of weird.
I think I'll petition to get them to open it up.
Okay,
Wait,
all right.
What was the next topic, anyways? This podcast has gone somewhere else.
You know what, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, we appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and I think it's been a fun and wild ride. But I think that might be the time for us to go ahead and wrap things up here. Joseph, do you have any closing statements?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being with us. And, I hope everybody's learned something today. And we've been learning so much because we've been just researching this stuff. And don't forget to please subscribe. This is our first time, getting this out there. And we'll take any critique and comments if you have them. So please definitely say something if you have to say something.
If you'd like to support us on Patreon, I promise you 1,000,000%, not a single Patreon dollar will go towards Joseph's sex doll brothel addiction.
No
So,
guarantees.
with that, we'd like to say thank you and good night, Internet.
Thank you, guys.